Did you? But I did. I listened. I listened at the door. Do you see the things you make me do?
When you are in Hollywood, crossing your limits and desiring extra is an easy thing. But some celebrities have always crossed the limits that even looked impossible for golden era superstars. In this video, we will explore actresses who had no boundaries when they had to fulfill their physical desire. You will be surprised to hear some of the well-known names who looked totally normal but were actually freaks. 1. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's reputation as a voracious lover was not simply a product of her 4 marriages, but also her countless rumored affairs with both men and women. She was believed to have slept her way to the top, a common practice among actresses looking to secure their place in the film industry. Crawford was notoriously ambitious, and her relationships were often seen as calculated moves to advance her career. She was rumored to have been involved with many of Hollywood's most powerful men, including MGM head Louis B. Mayer. Crawford's bisexuality was widely discussed behind closed doors, with rumors linking her to women like Barbara Stanwyck and Marilyn Monroe. The actress was said to be insatiable, using sex as both a tool for power and pleasure. Crawford's sexual exploits were largely overshadowed by her image as a fiercely independent, domineering woman, a combination that made her one of Hollywood's most enduring and scandalous figures. Her turbulent love life and passionate relationships led to her being labeled a sex freak by the standards of time. 2. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner's beauty was legendary, but it was her lust for life, love, and sex that truly set her apart. Gardner's relationships were often marked by intense passion, jealousy, and sexual exploration. Her affair and later marriage to Frank Sinatra became Hollywood legend, not only because of the fiery arguments and physical altercations, but also because of the raw, sexual energy that seemed to define their relationship. Gardner herself was outspoken about her desires, once reportedly quipping, "I like my whiskey old and my men young." She famously had affairs with Spanish bullfighters during her time in Spain, reveling in the excitement and danger of these relationships. Gardner also had dalliances with figures like Howard Hughes and Ernest Hemingway, both of whom were captivated by her wild spirit and unbridled sexuality. Her insatiable appetite for adventure, love, and sex, combined with her refusal to settle down or conform to societal expectations, made her a poster child for sexual liberation in a time when such behavior was often condemned for women. 3. Lana Turner. Lana Turner's tumultuous love life was filled with scandal, but it was her affair with mobster Johnny Stompanato that cemented her as a symbol of sexual excess and danger. Stompanato, who was known for his ties to organized crime, was not only physically abusive, but also involved Turner in an intense, sexually charged relationship. Their affair became front-page news when Turner's daughter, Cheryl Crane, killed Stompanato in a fit of protection during one of his violent outbursts. This shocking incident added fuel to the fire of Turner's already scandalous image. She was also married 7 times, each relationship adding another layer to her reputation as a woman driven by passion and desire. Turner was frequently involved with younger men, and her affairs were often fodder for tabloid gossip. Turner's combination of glamour, beauty, and a tumultuous personal life filled with passion and violence made her a prime candidate for the label of a nympho in the eyes of the public, even though much of her personal struggles stem from deeper emotional issues. 4. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was one of the few Golden Age stars who openly embraced her sexual identity, both in terms of her promiscuity and her bisexuality. In an era when most stars kept their private lives closely guarded to maintain a squeaky clean public image, Bankhead flaunted her affairs and indulgences. She was known for hosting wild parties where sex and drug use were commonplace. Bankhead had numerous lovers of both genders and was unapologetic about her sexual desires. She was notorious for her sexual appetite, and Hollywood gossip columns frequently reported on her liaisons with both men and women, including actresses like Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich. Bankhead's daring sexual exploits, combined with her penchant for living on the edge, she famously abused alcohol and drugs, led her to be labeled as a sex freak and a nymphomaniac. In an age of repression, Bankhead stood out as a woman who refused to conform to societal norms, making her a dangerous yet fascinating figure in Hollywood. 5. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe's sexual persona was meticulously crafted by Hollywood, but it mirrored her real-life struggles with intimacy and validation. Monroe's affair with President John F. Kennedy is one of the most famous stories of her life, symbolizing her status as both a sexual fantasy and a political liability. Her breathy voice and provocative public appearances, such as her famous Happy Birthday performance for JFK, cemented her reputation as Hollywood's ultimate sex symbol. However, Monroe's personal life was marked by a deep need for emotional connection, which she often sought through sexual relationships. Her marriages to Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller, and her rumored affairs with high-profile men, reflected a pattern of tumultuous, often self-destructive relationships. Monroe's sexual image was inseparable from her identity, and she often felt trapped by the very persona that made her famous. Her need for male attention and validation, paired with her beauty and vulnerability, led to her being viewed as a tragic nymphomaniac, someone whose unquenchable sexual desires were both her greatest asset and her undoing. 6. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was one of the most infamous sexual adventurers of Hollywood's golden age. His dashing good looks and swashbuckling roles made him a heartthrob, but it was his off-screen antics that truly earned him his reputation. Flynn's love for younger women led to multiple scandals, including his 1942 trial for statutory rape, in which 2 teenage girls accused him of sexual assault. Although he was acquitted, the trial cemented Flynn's reputation as a reckless playboy who lived life without limits. Flynn's hedonistic lifestyle included constant affairs, alcohol, and drug use, and he reportedly indulged in orgies and public sexual acts. Flynn's mansion, known as Mulholland Farm, was legendary for the wild parties he hosted, where sex, drugs, and alcohol flowed freely. Flynn's open bragging about his sexual exploits further contributed to his image as a Hollywood sex addict with seemingly insatiable desires. The phrase "in like Flynn" became a cultural shorthand for sexual success, further cementing his legacy as one of Hollywood's most notorious sexual adventurers. 7. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor's love life was as iconic as her acting career. Taylor was married 8 times to 7 different men, but it was her affair with Richard Burton that truly scandalized the world. Taylor and Burton's relationship was filled with passion, jealousy, and an almost obsessive sexual connection that played out in front of the entire world. The two met while filming Cleopatra, and despite both being married to other people at the time, they embarked on one of the most famous and fiery affairs in Hollywood history. Their tumultuous romance was marked by constant breakups and reconciliations, often fueled by their mutual alcoholism and sexual obsession. Taylor's numerous other marriages and affairs, including a scandalous relationship with hotel heir Nikki Hilton and her much-publicized romance with Eddie Fisher, who left Debbie Reynolds for her, further cemented her as a woman who lived for passion and romance. Taylor was often labeled as a nympho for her voracious appetite for men in love, and her larger-than-life persona only added to this myth. 8. Vivien Leigh. Vivien Leigh's sexual history was closely intertwined with her mental health struggles, making her both a tragic and alluring figure. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier, which began as a passionate affair while they were both married to other people, was marked by intense emotions and sexual chemistry. Leigh's bipolar disorder often exacerbated her behavior, leading her to engage in impulsive sexual relationships outside of her marriage. While married to Olivier, she reportedly had affairs with multiple men and women, and her manic episodes were often marked by sexual promiscuity. Leigh's mental health issues, coupled with her beauty and sexual allure, contributed to her image as a woman whose sexuality was both dangerous and uncontrollable. Despite her fragile mental state, Leigh remained one of the most desirable women in Hollywood, and her tragic love life only heightened her mythic status. 9. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr's sexual allure was a defining feature of her career from the very beginning. Her nude scenes in the 1933 film Ecstasy were considered scandalous at the time, and Lamar quickly became known as one of Hollywood's most daring actresses. Off-screen, Lamar's personal life was filled with passion and multiple marriages. She was married 6 times, and her relationships were often fraught with drama and infidelity. Lamar was also rumored to have had numerous affairs with powerful men in Hollywood, including producer Howard Hughes, and she was known to attend wild Hollywood parties where sexual experimentation was common. Lamar's beauty and intellect, she co-invented a frequency-hopping technology that laid the foundation for modern Wi-Fi, made her a complex figure, but it was her sexuality that dominated the public's perception of her. Her multiple marriages and sexual liberation led many to label her as a sex freak in a time when women were expected to conform to more traditional roles. 10. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman's affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini in the late 1940s caused an international scandal that nearly ruined her career. Bergman was married at the time, and her affair with Rossellini, followed by the birth of their child out of wedlock, was considered scandalous by American standards. The U.S. Senate even denounced her as a perverted instrument of evil, reflecting the puritanical outrage her actions sparked. Despite her wholesome image on screen, Bergman's sexual liberation, in defiance of societal norms, made her a target of public condemnation. Though not as promiscuous as others on this list, Bergman's affair was seen as a brazen act of sexual defiance, and it earned her a reputation as a woman who let her sexual desires lead her, even at the cost of her career and reputation. 11. Joan Blondell. Joan Blondell was known for her sultry, street-smart characters on screen, but her personal life was equally colorful. She was married 3 times, and her relationships were often the subject of tabloid gossip. Blondell's reputation as a sexually liberated woman stemmed from her refusal to adhere to Hollywood's expectations of women. She had numerous affairs and was known to enjoy relationships with some of the industry's most powerful men. Blondell's wit and charm only added to her appeal, and her sexual independence in a male-dominated industry made her stand out. Though not as scandal-ridden as some of her peers, Blondell's open embrace of her sexuality and independence gave her a reputation as a liberated woman who lived life on her own terms. 12. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake's life was a cautionary tale of Hollywood excess, fame, and tragedy. Lake's seductive femme fatale roles on screen mirrored her troubled personal life. She had multiple failed marriages and struggled with alcoholism, which contributed to her reputation as a difficult and self-destructive figure. Lake's sexual allure was often at the center of her public persona, and her affairs with powerful men in Hollywood were well known. Lake's life spiraled out of control as her career declined, and her sexual relationships were often seen as part of the downward spiral that eventually led to her demise. Lake's beauty and sexuality were central to her fame, but they also contributed to her undoing as she became a victim of Hollywood's obsession with youth, beauty, and sexual appeal. Each of these stars, whether through their open embrace of sexuality, scandalous affairs, or reputations as insatiable lovers, contributed to Hollywood's legacy of sex and scandal. These actors and actresses became symbols of excess, desire, and, in many cases, tragedy, as their personal lives played out in the public eye, feeding the tabloid machine and furthering their reputations as nymphos or sex freaks.